Hey everyone, Rock DIY here. What I have here is the Eufy E340 security video doorbell. It's dual cameras. It's got an upper camera and a lower camera. It basically allows you to see what may be on the ground in front of your door, as well as see anybody who's ringing the doorbell or standing at your door. And this has a 2K resolution, and it has 8 gigabytes of storage on it. It does have color night vision, and this one can be set up to run off the battery, and you can also wire it for power off whatever doorbell you may already have in place if you have electricity going to it. So this is the box that it comes in. This is the doorbell itself. Going from top to bottom, you've got the LED light on the very top. You got the motion sensor, which is right here. You've got the camera, one of the cameras, and then you've got the microphone, which is that hole right under the camera lens. And then you've got an ambient light sensor right there. Then you've got the LED ring doorbell button. Then underneath, you've got the LED light, the second camera, and then the speaker is on the very bottom. All right, on the back, this is the battery pack right here. And in order to remove the battery pack, you just lift up on the grips on the side. But I will say that this one specifically is very tight, and the grip on here is not that great. The instructions say to remove the battery pack, then hook up your charging cable, and you should do a complete charge before you start using it. But there is your Type-C connector to charge it. It does come with the cable for charging. One of the things you do want to be careful with is pay attention to this nub right here, or tab, and then on here as well. What you don't want to do is put the battery in like this, because it will start to go in, and if you keep pushing it, you're going to have a hard time getting this battery out. So what you need to do is put this in here first, then push it down. The other way is going to be very difficult to get the back off, since it has very limited grip. There are 2 screws right here. Those 2 screws are for your doorbell, if in fact you do already have one in place. There is the sync button right here, and then up here is a locking mechanism for once you put this mount on the wall next to your door. So this will go on, lock in place, and then right here on the very top is a hole for this pin key. What you would do is stick this down in there, which would allow you to remove the doorbell camera. I will say this, that if you put this somewhere where you got limited visibility, in other words, somebody could rip it off without being noticed, it wouldn't be that hard. But the way that you would put this on is seat the bottom into the mount, and then snap it down, and then again press the key in, pull, and that comes off. So I did mention this mount for the wall next to your door. You're going to put your 2 screws in here that lock it or screw it down to the wall. There is an additional plate. This plate, try to explain it. Let's just say that the camera is actually on here, and you can take this plate, which is angled 15 degrees, and you can put it this way and then put your screws into the wall, and it's going to naturally angle your camera more that direction. Or what you can do is flip it over, and it will angle your camera more the opposite direction, or you can just keep it flat. But the reason why you'd want this angled piece is if your typical approach for anybody coming, you may want it angled more that way. Or if it's people approach from this direction, then you may want it angled more that way. If they can pretty much approach from any direction, you may just want it flat on your wall. There is a positioning sticker, and it's got the screw holes plus the square cut out for that. And you can place this on the wall, pre-drill your holes, and then just put everything else, or put your brackets on. There are some jumper cables that you can use. It's optional. And then you also have these connectors that you can connect to your existing wiring as well. There are some screws. You also get the sticker. One note on doorbell cameras. Yes, they're great for your front door so that you can see anybody at your door or package deliveries or anything like that. But just keep in mind that it is possibly only your front door, and you may have one on your back door, but you seriously may want to consider additional cameras, because most of the time if somebody's up to something devious, if they approach and see that you have a doorbell camera, you know, they could put a hood on or pull a baseball cap down or just keep their head down, and yes, you got a picture of them, but trying to figure out who they are, if in fact they damage your property, steal your camera, or break in your house, it's going to be very limited as far as what can be found out in locating the person. So you may want to integrate additional cameras, and you know, just say this is set up next to your front door. You may want to have a camera over to this side as well as a camera maybe over to this side. That way they're crisscrossing and are integrated with your doorbell camera. And the reason why I say that is because if somebody has bad intentions and they pull up in their car right in front of your house, you may see the car, you may see the color of the car, but what you can't see is a license plate. So if you crisscross your cameras so that one's facing this way and one's facing this way, you have a higher chance of catching a license plate. And that's all dependent on if the road's straight directly in front of you or parallel to the front of your house, what kind of shrubbery you have, trees, stuff, so on and so forth. Take that into account, because a doorbell camera by itself is not the best of security. Some other things to know about the camera, and I briefly mentioned it, but you can use these different wires depending on whether you already have an existing doorbell. You can buy a Eufy doorbell, but the camera itself, when it depending on how you set it up, you may get a message, or what'll happen is the camera will give you a doorbell chime letting you know that somebody's at your door, so you'll get that on your phone. That's something I'll cover a little bit more of. As far as setting it up, the system can work independently, so you can set this up just so it's connected to your router, but you can also set it up to be connected to your Eufy security home base. If you don't have any Eufy security cameras or videos or anything, the very first thing you're going to want to do is go to the App Store and download the Eufy security app, and then just follow the in-app instructions to add the video camera doorbell. So even though this camera does have a battery, you still do have the option to wire it for power, and you just got to make that decision. The unfortunate part is if you do solely just the battery, you're going to have to remove the camera to take the battery pack out, charge the battery, put it back in order to continue using it. When you do set this camera up, you do want it at least 48 inches up from the ground. This camera does have, because it's dual cameras, it does have good view, but something you want to take into account is, do you have steps going up to your doorway? Because in some cases you may want to put a little bit higher or a little bit lower, because you may not see things if you'd go with the typical 48 inches. And typically if you have steps and a short porch, anybody who's going to drop a package off is not going to come all the way up on your porch. They're probably just going to set it on the steps or right off the steps on the porch and not fully approach the door. So take that into account. Going back to the battery, so what you could do is, I think I already said it, but in the instructions it tells you to remove the battery pack when you charge it, but where you charge it is right here, so I don't see why you can't just remove that and charge it. Something to consider, purchasing an additional battery pack. That way when it's time to charge the battery, all you got to do is put the new one in that's already charged.